Think back for a second, and if you can, what was the support system like when you were growing up? Who was in your corner? Because those early moments, that feeling of safety or maybe even pressure, well, they didn't just vanish after childhood, did they? They kind of stick around. They shape how we deal with things, how we see ourselves. Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We're calling it the blueprint of belief. We're looking hard at how those parent-child bonds actually measurably impact things like school success, sure, but also our well-being, like way down the line. We've got global studies on what parents do, insights from psychology like Bowlby's work, and some really surprising data that tracks people from teens into their 60s.
Yeah, our goal isn't just to say parents matter. I mean, we kind of know that, right? It's about the how, what specific things work, what's happening psychologically underneath all that. And importantly, we're going to dig into a bit of a snag in the research itself. As we talk about these really deep lifelong effects, well, it turns out measuring the quality of these connections, it's trickier than you might think. So we'll look at what kinds of supports seem to matter most, even decades later, and why researchers are actually struggling to get a good handle on measuring it all properly.
Okay, so let's start with the school side of things. Parental involvement, PI, and academic achievement, AS. The link seems pretty solid, right?
Oh, absolutely solid. The data is really quite definitive. Good parental involvement, quality involvement. It genuinely boosts kids' motivation. It also helps with, behavior, keeping things on track, discipline-wise. And you see real effects on attendance. Kids show up more.
And stay in school longer, less dropping out.
Exactly. Lower dropout rates are consistently linked to higher PI. It's a core factor.
And the evidence for this isn't just anecdotal, is it? You mentioned a study.
Yeah, right. A mixed method one, which is great because it pulls from different angles. They didn't just send out a survey. They got questionnaire responses from 425 parents, feedback from 110 teachers watching things unfold, and they did deep interviews with parents, teachers, and 130 students themselves.
Ah, so getting everyone's perspective, parents, teachers, kids, that paints a much fuller picture.
Totally. It validates that this isn't just one group thinking PI helps. It shows the positive effects across the whole learning environment. When parents get involved in the right way, you see the benefits.
Okay, so let's move from the general idea, get involved, to the specifics. What does that actually look like day to day? What were those concrete strategies that seem to work for home-based learning?
Yeah, the study identified 5 key ones, and they're pretty practical, really, not just, vague encouragement. First up, maybe the most obvious one, helping with homework.
Right, the classic.
But it wasn't just about getting the answers right. Students said getting help made finishing tasks easier, sure, but more than that, it boosted their confidence.
Ah, the confidence piece. That's interesting.
And teachers saw it too. They said that kind of support really motivates students. It sort of lowers the barrier to just getting started with learning.
Okay, strategy 1. Homework help builds confidence. What's number 2?
Number 2 is time management support. Helping kids actually organize their school stuff at home.
Like setting up a schedule or breaking down tasks.
Exactly. One parent literally said, I provide the time management support by assisting his home-based school activities. It's about structure.
Which makes sense, especially for younger kids or maybe ones who struggle with planning.
For sure. And students felt it too. They said things like, they do better managing my studies with the time management support of my parents. It creates a rhythm, a predictability.
Okay, homework help, time management. What's third?
Third is absolutely crucial, emotional support. This came up again and again as vital for keeping spirits up.
Just being there, being encouraging.
Yeah, but teachers noted it always seems to motivate students. There's something psychological going on there. And parents saw the immediate payoff. They reported that giving emotional support reduces my child's negative thinking over education. It helps kids bounce back, stay positive about learning.
Builds that resilience, maybe. Okay, number 4.
Fourth was regular monitoring progress. And this one was interesting because all 3 groups, parents, teachers, and students, pointed to this as boosting academic performance.
So checking in, seeing how things are going, not like hovering, but being aware.
Exactly. Accountability without being overbearing. One student put it really well. Their regular monitoring of progress encourages me to engage in learning. It keeps schoolwork on their radar, pushes them gently towards improving.
Makes sense.
You're good.
And the last one, number 5.
Number 5 is very much about today's world. Technological support.
Ah, the screens. Providing devices, internet access.
Yes, but also the guidance to use them effectively.
Right.
Helping them navigate the tech allows them to learn new things, complete assignments more easily.
So it's not just having the gear, it's having the help to use it well.
Precisely. Teachers specifically saw higher scores in kids who got this kind of support compared to those who didn't. Resources matter, but the parental guidance makes the difference.
Okay, so those 5 strategies: homework help, time management, emotional support, monitoring, tech support, they paint a picture of active, constructive involvement.
Yeah.
But let's pivot now to this idea of, well, just how much time this takes. Because there's a huge global difference here, isn't there?
Oh, it's staggering. The time investment figures are wild. There was this global education survey. And get this. In India, parents reported spending an average of 12 hours per week helping with their kids' education outside of school hours.
12 hours
Eh.
a week. That's like a part-time job on top of everything else.
It's immense, basically adding almost 3 extra school days of parental help every single month.
Wow. Okay, so how does that compare to other places? Places known for good education outcomes.
Well, look at Finland. Only 5% of parents there spend 7 or more hours a week on this. 5%.
Oh.
And Japan, highly competitive system, right? The average there is just 2.6 hours a week.
Wait, 12 hours versus 2.6? That's a massive gap.
Yeah.
It suggests really different cultural views on what's needed.
Huge cultural chasm. Different expectations entirely about the parent's role in academics.
So you have these high-performing systems where parents seem to spend less time, and then places like India with this massive time commitment. What happens with all that pressure? Does 12 hours guarantee success, or?
That's the paradox, especially in those high-involvement cultures. The same study found that while Indian parents were super optimistic, like 88% felt schools were prepping their kids well.
Okay, high hopes.
There is also this undercurrent of serious anxiety. Almost half, 44%, worried their kids were under too much academic pressure.
So the sheer amount of time and focus doesn't necessarily equal calm confidence. It can actually ramp up the stress.
Often it does, yeah, because the focus can shift from genuine support to just performance, hitting the marks.
Which brings us right to that crucial line, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When does involvement stop being helpful and start being, well, harmful? The over-dominant parent thing.
Exactly. When it stops being about the child's needs and becomes all about the parent's expectations, that's when things go south. The academic benefits can just evaporate. And worse, it starts doing psychological damage. This kind of overbearing involvement leads to strained relationships, real tension, anger.
Because the parent is pushing their agenda.
Right. We saw students talking about how their decision-making was impaired because parents set all the goals, or getting punished for mistakes instead of helped. One student literally said, "My parents' expectations caused our relationship to become strained."
Oof. So it changes the whole dynamic. Instead of a supportive coach, it's more like a drill sergeant.
Pretty much. And that erodes the trust you need for real learning, for feeling safe enough to explore ideas or admit you don't understand something.
So it seems like those 12 hours or even 2 hours mean nothing if the quality of that interaction is poor, if it's controlling or punitive. Quality over quantity, maybe?
That seems to be a major takeaway, absolutely. The how matters immensely.
Okay, let's unpack this further then. We've got the homework help, the emotional support, the monitoring things that help kids succeed academically. But let's dig deeper into the why. Why does the quality of that connection, that relationship, matter so profoundly, not just for next week's test, but, well, for their whole life?
This is where we really need to bring in the work of John Bowlby and attachment theory. It's foundational stuff. Bowlby basically argued that those early, consistent, sensitive interactions between a child and their main caregiver, usually the parent create what he called the inner working model for social relations.
An inner working model.
Yeah.
Like a blueprint or an operating system for relationships.
Exactly like that. An operating system is a great analogy. It's this cognitive framework set up really early that kind of dictates how we approach all our future relationships, social stuff, emotional stuff.
Okay, so if the caregiver is building this operating system, what are the key functions they need to provide to make sure it runs smoothly, securely?
Bowlby highlighted 2 critical roles, being a secure base and being a safe haven.
Secure base and safe haven. Okay, what do those mean?
The secure base is about providing that underlying emotional security that, maybe counterintuitively, allows the child to feel safe enough to leave the parent and explore the world.
So feeling secure lets you be brave.
Precisely. They know they have a safe place to return to so they can take risks, learn, become independent. And the safe haven is where they run to when things get scary or overwhelming. It's that source of immediate comfort, protection, reassurance when the child is distressed.
Like when a toddler falls and runs to mom or dad.
Exactly that impulse. And when that caregiver is consistently available and comforting in those moments, it calms the child's stress response physiologically. It builds this core belief: I'm safe, people will be there for me, I'm worthy of care.
And these interactions, the secure base, the safe haven, they add up over time. And by age 3, you said this internal working model, the IWM, is pretty much set.
Largely, yes. The foundation is laid very early. And this IWM, this mental template, has about 3 key features that shape things going forward. First, it creates a model of others. Are people generally trustworthy? Are relationships reliable?
Okay, how you see other people.
Second, a model of the self. Am I valuable? Am I worthy of love and attention?
How you see yourself.
And third, a model of the self as effective in relationships. Can I get my needs met? Can I handle conflict? Can I elicit support when I need it?
Wow. Trustworthy others, valuable self, effective self. That really does sound like a blueprint for, well, everything.
It guides so much of our emotional and social life. It's pretty profound.
And the idea that this blueprint, set so young, could hold true for like 60 years.
Yeah.
That seems almost unbelievable. But you mentioned there's data on this.
There is, and it's quite remarkable. It comes from the National Survey of Health and Development, the NSHD study. They followed a group of people from when they were teenagers, around 13 to 15, all the way into their early 60s, ages 60 to 64. And they used something called the Parental Bonding Instrument, the PBI, to ask these adults to recall the care and control they experienced from their parents before age 16.
So asking adults to look back on their childhood relationship dynamics.
Right. And the finding that came through consistently across all those decades was really clear. Higher levels of parental care combined with lower levels of parental psychological control. These were significantly linked to better positive mental well-being at every single stage they measured: adolescence, midlife, early older age.
So feeling cared for and not feeling psychologically controlled as a kid predicts better mental health basically your whole life.
That's what the data strongly suggests. The quality of that early bond really does echo through the decades.
Okay, we absolutely need to pause on that term,
Mm-hmm.
psychological control, because you contrast it with care. It sounds different from just like setting rules or bedtimes.
Hugely different. And this distinction is critical. What we might call behavioral control, things like setting curfews, making sure homework gets done, general structure that's often fine, even helpful, especially if it comes with warmth and care.
Okay, so rules aren't necessarily bad.
No. But psychological control is, well, it's manipulative. It's intrusive. It often makes love feel conditional.
How so? What does it look like?
It's things like using guilt trips. Don't you care how much I sacrifice for you? Or using sarcasm to demean, withholding affection or attention when the child doesn't comply, threatening love withdrawal.
Ah, okay, so instead of you need to study, it's like if you really love me, you'd get an A. That kind of thing.
Exactly that. Using the relationship itself as leverage, that kind of control was consistently tied to poor long-term well-being in the study, even when they accounted for personality differences.
Because it undermines their sense of self, their autonomy.
Right. It doesn't let the child develop their own internal motivation or self-regulation. It forces them to comply out of fear or guilt, not genuine understanding or choice. It's essentially emotional blackmail.
So psychological control is the poison, care is the antidote. And the NSHD study had another really interesting twist on the care part, didn't it? Something about moms versus dads.
Yes, this was probably one of the most nuanced and frankly surprising findings. When the researchers statistically isolated the impact of each parent controlling for the other parent's influence,
Okay, trying to see the unique effect of each one.
they found that paternal care, the care received from the father, was actually more strongly associated with higher well-being later in life than maternal care was.
Wait, really? Father's care was a stronger predictor. At what ages?
At 3 different points: in adolescence, 13 to 15, again in mid-adulthood, age 43, and even out at ages 60-64.
Wow. So looking decades ahead, the level of care from your dad seems to be a particularly powerful predictor of positive mental health. How do researchers even begin to explain that?
It's complex, and it definitely doesn't mean maternal care isn't vital. It absolutely is. But it suggests fathers bring something unique and non-overlapping to the table. One idea is that maybe when fathers step outside traditional, more stoic gender roles to provide sensitive emotional care, it sends a particularly powerful message to the child about emotional expression and availability. It models something important.
Okay, that makes sense. Like it expands the child's view of what connection can be.
Potentially. Another angle came from looking specifically at the 60-64 age group. The positive link between paternal care and well-being was even stronger for men.
The gender-specific effect there.
Yeah, the theory is that sons might internalize their father's caring behavior more directly, maybe leading to better relationship skills or emotional expression for them later in life, which then fuels their own well-being.
Fascinating. So the big picture is a secure IWM built on high care and low psychological control, especially factoring in paternal care, seems to set you up for a more resilient life, potentially for 50, 60 years.
The data points strongly in that direction.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff. And, it's not just in the statistics. We see this deep need for that secure connection reflected elsewhere, too, right? Like in art, in literature.
Absolutely. The emotional weight of these lifelong bonds, the fear when they feel threatened, it comes through powerfully. Think about that poem by Kamala Das, My Mother at 66.
Right. I remember that one. It's quite poignant.
It really is. And it's almost a perfect illustration of the attachment system kind of going on high alert.
How so? Remind me of the imagery.
Well, the poet is driving with her elderly mother, and she looks over and sees her mother sleeping, doze, open-mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse.
Oof, yeah. Stark image.
And she has the sudden, painful realization that she was as old as she looked. That stark confrontation with her mother's frailty, her mortality.
What is that, psychologically speaking, in attachment terms?
That's a direct threat to the safe haven. The mother, the person who is likely the primary source of comfort and safety, suddenly appears vulnerable, temporary, ashen, pale as a late winter's moon. It shatters that illusion of permanence that we rely on for security.
And the poet feels that childhood fear again, right? She mentions that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear.
Exactly. That line is key. That visceral anxiety, the fear of separation, of loss, that is the attachment system signaling danger. It validates Bowlby's whole framework from a deeply personal, emotional angle.
So it connects the dots. The NSHD study shows high care, low control builds lifelong resilience. The poem shows the raw fear that surfaces when that foundational relationship feels threatened.
Precisely. It grounds the scientific findings in the human reality of love and loss. When attachment is secure, we can weather storms better. When it feels insecure or threatened, that deep childhood's fear can rush right back. And you see echoes of this constantly, right? In news articles, discussions about mental health, adult anxiety. So often, if you trace it back, it connects to whether that early IWM provided a solid foundation for handling life's inevitable threats, including the fear of loss. Science or poetry, the message is consistent. The blueprint matters, which loops us right back to this major challenge. We have this incredibly strong evidence, longitudinal evidence, showing that the quality of care, especially that paternal care piece and avoiding psychological control, is fundamental for lifelong well-being. But if it's that important, how good are we as researchers at actually measuring that quality, capturing that subtle interaction?
If the blueprint is everything, you'd assume we have really precise tools to measure how well it's being drawn. But you're saying, maybe not.
Based on a systematic review we looked at, the answer is a pretty concerning not really. It turns out there's a real scarcity of good, validated tools. When researchers specifically search for instruments designed to measure parent-child communication, or PCC, from the child's point of view, which arguably gives us the best window into their experience.
Okay, focusing on what the kid perceives.
They found only 12. Just 12 general multi-item scales rated by the child.
12 in the entire field.
Yeah.
For something so fundamental, this seems incredibly low.
It's worryingly low, and it gets worse. Within those 12, one single scale, the Parent-Adolescent Communication Scale, PACS, is used in something like 75% of the studies they reviewed.
3/4 of the research relies on this one tool.
Yep. The PACS mostly looks at two things, open communication and communication problems. So the field is heavily leaning on this one instrument, measuring just those two aspects.
That feels risky, doesn't it? Relying so much on one scale. Especially if its scale is self-fitting.
That's the million-dollar question. And beyond just relying on one scale, there's also this problem of, what are we even trying to measure? There's a lot of conceptual confusion.
Meaning different scales are measuring different things, but calling it all communication.
Exactly. Some focus on how open the child feels they can be. Others look more at conformity. Does the child go along with the parent? Others focus on conflict resolution skills. Some measure avoidance. Does the child just shut down? There's no real agreement on what the core components of good communication actually are. It's kind of a theoretical mess.
Which makes it hard to compare studies or build a coherent picture. And leads back to the quality issue. Are these tools actually measuring what they say they are?
That's the crux of it. The systematic review was pretty blunt. It concluded the psychometric evidence, the proof that these tools are reliable and valid, is mostly insufficient or even severely lacking.
Insufficient or severely lacking. Wow, that sounds bad.
It's not great. They pointed out that these measures often skip really crucial validation steps. Two big ones were often missing. First, construct validity. Does the scale actually measure the thing it's supposed to measure, like communication quality, or is it accidentally measuring something else, like maybe just general family happiness or stress levels?
Right, like using a ruler to measure temperature.
Yeah,
You get a number, but it's meaningless for what you want to know.
perfect analogy. And the second missing piece was often discriminative validity. Can the scale tell the difference between communication quality and other related ideas, like maybe just how warm the relationship feels overall?
So could a good communication score just mean the family is generally doing okay, rather than reflecting specific communication skills?
Potentially, yes. If the scale can't discriminate, you might think communication is driving an outcome when really it's just tapping into overall family functioning or maybe even socioeconomic status. And because these checks were rarely done, we often just don't know.
Can we put a number on how bad it is? That PASS scale, the one used 75% of the time. How did it stack up on quality?
This was pretty shocking. On the quality assessment criteria used in the review, looking at things like reliability, validity evidence, etc., the PASS scored just 11 points out of a possible 27.
11 out of 27. That's less than half, about 40%.
Roughly, yeah. So the most dominant tool in the field, the one underpinning potentially decades of research findings about parent-adolescent communication, only meets basic quality standards about 40% of the time, according to this review.
That's deeply concerning. We've just talked about how critical these dynamics are for lifelong well-being, based partly on research using these tools. What does it mean if the main measuring stick is potentially warped?
Well, the implications are pretty huge, aren't they? Think about interventions, parenting programs, therapy approaches designed to improve communication. If they measure success using a tool like PASS, how do we actually know if the program worked?
We might be seeing improvement on the score, but it doesn't mean real communication improved. Or maybe real improvement happened, but the scale didn't catch it.
Exactly. False positives, false negatives. It makes it incredibly hard to know what actually works. It casts doubt on past findings and really hinders progress in figuring out how to best support families. We can't move forward with confidence if our tools are flawed.
And there was another layer of complexity too, wasn't there? The issue of who you ask to rate her perspective.
Right. This is a known challenge in family research. If you ask the parent, the child, and maybe have an outside observer watch them interact, their ratings of the communication quality often only match up moderately.
They see the same conversation differently.
Often, yes. And it's not necessarily that someone is wrong. It reflects their subjective experience. A parent might feel a talk was open because they got their points across. The teen might feel it was controlling because they felt pressured.
So if the perspectives differ, whose view matters most when we're trying to link communication to the child's outcomes, like their mental health or school success?
The general consensus leans towards the child's perspective being particularly crucial for understanding their experience and outcomes. The child's subjective feeling about the communication is likely most directly linked to their own psychosocial functioning, their IWM, their well-being. And it's key for planning interventions for the child.
But if the tools to measure that child's perspective are the ones lacking quality,
then we're stuck again. Even focusing on the most relevant perspective doesn't help if the measurement is unreliable or invalid. It really underscores an urgent need for the field to develop and rigorously validate better instruments. Measurement science needs to catch up to the importance of what it's trying to measure. Hashtag HowCat outro. So, pulling it all together, what have we seen? We've seen that parental commitment, the active strategies parents use, clearly drives academic success. Homework help, emotional support, these things work. But crucially, the quantity of time isn't the whole story. It can even backfire if the quality is poor, if it's dominated by pressure or psychological control. And then digging deeper, we see that the quality of that early care, especially factoring in consistent paternal care and avoiding that manipulative psychological control, seems to lay down this incredibly durable blueprint, the IWM, that supports positive mental well-being right across the lifespan for decades.
yeah, the echoes last a lifetime. But the big tension here, the real paradox we've uncovered in this deep dive, is that this cornerstone of human development, this blueprint for resilience, well, we're trying to study it using tools that researchers themselves are calling insufficient, even severely lacking. We have these profound findings about how parents matter, why care is so critical. But the very instruments we rely on to quantify that crucial quality of communication are, frankly, pretty shaky. So what does this all mean for us, for parents, for researchers? If we know quality trumps quantity, right? That high care and low psychological control are the magic ingredients for long-term resilience, then maybe the biggest challenge right now isn't just telling stressed out parents to spend more time. Maybe it's twofold. First, really appreciating the immense lifelong weight of that internal working model built in childhood. And second, demanding better from the science. Ensuring researchers, educators, therapists have tools they can actually trust, robust, validated measures that truly capture the quality of these vital interactions. Only then can we confidently know what works and how to best offer support.
Absolutely. The stakes, as the NSHD study showed, are incredibly high. That blueprint shapes how we navigate everything, even how we face loss, like in the poem we touched on. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Given how much we know this matters, and how much we now know about the weakness of our current measurement tools, what critical insights about the real quality of care and connection are we missing? And how do we make improving measurement science a top priority so we can genuinely protect and strengthen that inner working model for the next generation?
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.